right, so factor variables aren't really too bad. It's really just an issue of dealing with all the different levels you have and putting them in the order that you want. Dates, on the other hand, are a nightmare, and yet you'll have to deal with them quite a bit working with real-world data. They're just simply hard to work with. By the nature of their being, they are difficult to work with because they combine multiple different pieces of information into a single variable. Like what goes into a date? The year, the month, the day. Maybe it's a time variable. You also have hour, minute, second, whether it's AM or PM. Now, how do you move forward and back in time? You want to go to the next month? Well, what if it's March 31st? What's the previous month from that? Is that February 28th? Is that February 31st, which doesn't exist? It's all very confusing. So all these things also come in multiple different kinds of formats. There are multiple different recognized date formats in R and also in other languages. Just working with dates is a huge pain. However, thankfully, in the Tidyverse or in R, there is a package called Lubridate that makes working with dates at least a lot easier to do. I strongly recommend working with the Lubridate package whenever you're working with dates. There's, of course, a cheat sheet for Lubridate on working with dates. If you are working with a date variable, before you work really hard on it, stop and ask yourself, oh, I wonder if there's a Lubridate function that does the thing that I'm trying to make it do and makes it easily. And there probably is. Use Lubridate. Even when I'm not working with the Tidyverse, I use Lubridate all the time. It's just very handy. So what does Lubridate allow us to do? So first thing it does, it allows us to create date variables from strings. You can write out a date variable very easily in string format. You can say 2020-0101. That means the 1st of January in 2020. However, R will not recognize that as an actual date, which could be a problem. If you want to make a graph or something like that, it will treat that as a string as opposed to as a date. So it won't know to do things like put one after the other or that it's a continuous change over time. You need to convert it to an actual date variable. Lubridate has a lot of functions for making that conversion very easy. So there's a whole set of functions like YMD, YM, MDY that take a string variable that has a date in it and converts it into the actual date variable that you might be interested in. And it's based, the names of the functions are based on the order that the information comes in. So YMD means that I'm giving you a variable that goes year, month, day. MDY is month, day, year, which is handy, right? Because if you just look at this by itself, do you want it to guess whether it's day, month, year, or month, day, year? No, you should tell it, right? There's also the YM variable for if you can give it just year and month information, it will give you back the first day of that month. So let's actually see what these do. So first of all, even though Lubridate is sort of a Tidyverse adjacent package, you do have to load it separately. So let's take a look here. YMD 2021. It looks like it didn't do anything, but now it is actually a date variable, which I can store in my data. YM will give me back, again, the same date because it will be the first day of this year and month. What if I wanted the other way? What about MY 01 2020? Right, same thing, right? I'm just telling it what structure of date writing down I've done, and it will get back that information for me. This, of course, works as well in data, right? So in a column of data. So if I look at my construction data, right, I have a year variable here. What if I want to turn that into a date? When it's just a year, that often will work by itself anyway because years work as numbers. But let's say that I want to make that a date. Well, I can do something like this. I can say mutate year as date. Oops, not Y. I can use year month. I can say year, paste together year 01. So what exactly is going on here? You're like, oh, wait a minute, he added a thing called paste. What's this? Basically, all this is doing is taking year and slapping a 01 on the end of it, and then converting that into date with the YM function. So you can see that I will actually get, let's pull out the year, date, getting the actual dates that I have here, right? So 2018, 0101, and so on. So this is giving me January in all these. Actually, that's not what I wanted. I probably could have incorporated the month here. But anyway, the point is you can use these to convert things to dates. So as I mentioned, you can combine these with paste in order to paste together multiple columns. Let's say that you have a data set that has month and day and year in different columns. Let's make a data set like that. My data, Tibble. Let's do year is 2015 through 2018. Month is, let's say, I don't know, 1, 5, 6, 2, whatever, 4 observations, and day is 5, 6, 1, 3. Okay, so my data, right? I've got the month, year, and day in separate columns. I want to turn it into a single date variable that I can use. I can simply do mutate. Date is, let's do whatever, day, month, year. And let's paste together the day, month, and year. And there we have it, right? It recognizes now that I've got, it's giving me the right year, the right month, and the right day that I want to work with. And there we have now a usable date variable that we can use, say, in a graph or something like that. So we can create date variables in that way, turn them into actual date variables that R will recognize and use properly. We can also then get information back out about those dates using functions like year, quarter, month, day, or even week. So I've got this variable right here. Let's pull back out, and let's say that I want to get the year back out. Or let's say, I've got year, month, day. Let's say I want to know what quarter this is from, right? Let's mutate. Quarter is the quarter of the date. That will tell me that, yes, this January observation is in quarter 1, this June observation is in quarter 2, February observation is in quarter 1, and April observation is in quarter 2. I've used quarter here, but I can also get back all other sorts of stuff. Like I started with the year, so I don't really need to get it back out, but I could get it back out if I wanted to with year, date, right? It will recreate the year that I started with. So I can get information back out. So let's say that I've got a bunch of data, but I just want to, let's say I've got a bunch of dates, but I only want to graph things by year. I could pull the year out, group by year, get summary statistics by year that I could use. Easy. You can also label months with built-in R names. So R comes with two different vectors always loaded: month abbreviation and month name. Right. So and they're indexed. So if I say, hey, what is the month name of the first month? It will be January. Right. So I can do that here. So I've got this month data right here. Let's say I want to make a graph where I label the months appropriately. I can say mutate month label equals month name month. And I can get January for 1, June for 6, February for 2, and April for 4, as you might expect. So we've now created our date variable. Maybe we've pulled some information back out of our date variable. We can also move around in time, which can be very handy. You can add or subtract time from your date variable. So for example, here I'm starting with January 1st, 2020. I'm going to add a year to it with the years function. This will move me forward in time 1 year to January 1st of 2021. I can also add multiple months. Now this is a nice function because I can tell you in some languages, they really don't like you adding or subtracting months because of things like, again, what if it's March 31st and you try to subtract a month? You got to figure out, are you talking about going to because it's the last day of March? Are you going to the last day of February, the 28th? Are you going back 30 days to the 1st of March? What is it going to be? But it has at least made a decision for you, even if you might argue whether that's the right decision or not. In fact, let's see what it does if you try to subtract a month from March 31st. Gives you nothing. Gives you back a missing value because you can't move. But it does not give you an error, right? It just gives you back a missing because you can't move back a month. You can also move forward in time, back in time by days. Lots of different options there. Another one that comes in very handy is floor date for rounding down dates. Let's say you've got daily information, but you want to graph things on the monthly level, right? So maybe you've got stock price by day, but you just want to get an average over the entire month. Well, how can you convert your day, which goes, any given day of the month, into a month? I just want to get the month. Well, you can use floor date to round things down. So let's use our table right here that we have. Actually, let's use let's change our table here to be all 20. All right, so we look at this. We have 2 2015 observations, 2 2016 observations. Now let's say that I'm only interested in looking at things by year. So I sort of want to round these dates down to January 1st of their year. I can use floor date. So year date is floor date of date. I'm going to round down to the nearest year. So now I can see that I get January 1st in both 2015 and 2016. I can do a similar thing by month. Right. So now I can see instead of January 5th, it's January 1st. Instead of June 6th, it's June 1st. And I can do all sorts of stuff with that. I mentioned using quarter, day, month, year, etc. You can also use week. You can get weeks of the year. Maybe you want to aggregate things to the weekly level. Lots of cool stuff that you can do there with Lubridate. So that covers what we can do with Lubridate. We can create dates by sending it through like a YMD function or something like that. We can also paste together different columns of year, month, and day information and then send that to a YMD function to get back an actual usable date. We can move around in time by adding or subtracting months or years. We can round down our dates to months or years or quarters or whatever it is using the floor date function. There's also a ceiling date function, although I never really had a use for it myself. I've forgotten something. You can, get information back out with the year function or the quarter function or the month function or the day function, things like that. So lots of cool stuff you can do with Lubridate to help you clean your date data.